Welcome to RnG, where you get to listen to my brother and me talk about whatever is top of mind and top of die, because of course we're going to roll for it. Today, our topic to guide our discussion is actual plays as art. But before we get to that, this is me, not your GM today, but still and always your friend, Robert Whitehead. And with me, as always, is my lovely brother. It's still a table of family and friend, but brother, welcome.
Hey, it's G, and happy to be here. We are doing the brother thing, and you're going to have to listen to it.
Yep. Trying something new. You got Cozy Corner recently. You got RnG now. Maybe I'll post them. Maybe we'll post them at the same time. I don't know. It's like those authors that are these days. I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of fantasy authors these days will do like the same series, but from two different POVs, and then release it as like brother-sister series.
Oh, cool.
I think that's kind of fun. But today we are here to talk about actual plays as art. We're going to talk about all the things that go into our post-production process, which is quite a bit. I think between G and I, our episodes these days end up being somewhere between like combined layers. What do you think? Because I'm putting sometimes... we've got 4 voice tracks, but then on top of that, sometimes I'm putting 2 to 3 layers of reverb, a voice effect, 3 layers of ambiance in this last one, and SFX on top of that, which, oh God, don't even get me started.
Yeah, that it turns into, I think, quite a bit. I go into it with a plan to hit 3 layers. I'm going to do some
Sorry for laughing.
I'm going to do some bass line. I'm going to put some choral effects in there with like a lead instrument, and it inevitably turns into 10, 15, 20 tracks.
I still remember the first night we sat down to compose. I don't know if we'd even played yet, but we were just like, what is Wish Enter going to be like?
Yeah.
And like before we even had actually played for the campaign, just kind of trying to vibe it out. I still remember you playing and putting something together and me being like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
You could, now this is the point. This is what we can move on from that. And then you being like, I could add a little bit more. And then me just seeing the future of a lot of overworking weekends.
Oh, and I am coming from like a perfectionist past as a musician, not because I'm good. I'm just, I just,
you're quite good, but
have unhealthy work ethic towards the music that I want. And I really think that what was cool with the initial, what felt like, hey, is this going to work? I think it was episode 0 that we were sitting down, or 00 that we were sitting down to play along to. And I'm like, I have this idea of like just playing some like jazz piano and listening along, and there, the reactions won't be right on point, but sometimes I can guess. And we did some cool stuff in B major and E flat minor. And it really kind of sold to me the idea that, okay, I do have an ear for what's going on. But the music I played in that moment, I almost knew right away. I'm like, this is me writing notes for something bigger. Every piano note felt like a plan to like really capture the story, but I had no idea what it looked like.
Yeah, you did a Wicked. You did a Hamilton with this one. Like there, you for sure, I think back to the layers thing, I'm putting sometimes 16 to 20 layers into.
God, that's wild too.
Right. Like, but that's just my side of this of the road. And then with the music on top of that, it's just wild to me, the 30 layers that we'll sometimes get in scenes, and you can feel it. We'll listen to a couple throughout this. Episode 21 is one of my favorite episodes for that reason.
Yep. And
of course the finale for that reason, but there was obviously some growing periods, and your perfectionism was only matched by my need for competency. There's so many things about sound design that you can do, but you don't have to. Like you don't have to EQ your stuff. You don't have to take out the low end, and you don't have to like.
God, I thought you were gonna say add footsteps here or not.
Well, right? No, I didn't get there. I'm talking about early. I mean, even before that, just like learning that there was more that you could do outside of cuts, that you could make a voice sound more pleasant, or that you could, I feel like we have a cinematic sound behind the show. And I think that started with wanting to produce the sound of the show just a little bit heavier and like a little bit like more in your face.
Yeah.
We started out so soft and ethereal, and like it took us several episodes to be brave enough for you, I think, to put in like rhythm and beat, and for me to like even think about doing sound effects.
Oh, that's such a good point of like two things of like what influences, we pulled from starting out and maybe where it went. And also the style that came out of that influence at what rate based on basically my insecurities, really. I mean, really, because there was a point within the very beginning that it came with ideas of a hyper respect for what we were saying, being very sensitive to music in the background as a person listening to a movie or anything like that. And so I went into it with like, I am just going to do like ethereal tones and maybe have some themes around big moments that have more music.
Yeah, I know that you said early on, like my biggest fear is that I take away from the experience of just listening to us, which is in our opinion, good enough, like already as a baseline.
Yeah,
like we do
not need the music.
Yeah. Although I think the music is obviously one of the many and primary things that make our show special.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a creative choice, largely on your part. Like I'm not sitting here being like,
right,
you have to give me the most amazing cinematic sounds today. Like I would be so okay with the ethereal piano, even from the beginning. And like punctuated with little bits here and there, but what you've grown into, it's so cool to have seen you more from a live play style. Like I've watched my brother grow from a live stage musician with obviously some amount of experience at producing his own music, but I can't imagine you were playing hour-long songs for yourself like back in the day, or sometimes that's actually,
it's really weird that it actually perfectly aligned at least going from a live performer of like anywhere from 10 to 12 years of bar shows, weddings, and every type of convention that you can think of, 5-piece bands, 2-piece bands, and everything above and below, like solo and big band, I guess I could have just said. But it was the stuff at home was on a loop pedal. And I'd come home, and a lot of the times that when I did do solo shows, it was much more like EDM video game music mixed with acoustic guitar. Or my influence is more than being any like specific genre of music, or oftentimes like activities I do.
Yeah.
Whether they're synesthetic or come with music already. So like video games, soundtracks I've heard in my head while I read.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing the Zelda soundtrack right now. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
I can't go on, but dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Any 90s kid that's listened to a video game long enough so that it gets like earwormed into you. And then like you're just vacuuming later, and the vacuum triggers this note that suddenly just makes you sing this Zelda song from 15, 20 years ago.
I'm not sure. I'm sure a lot of people are like that. I don't think everyone is so mindful of things that pop in. Like there was a time that I remember you were so aware of your influences and like honestly avoidant of influences in general, because you were
one of the right.
Yeah. And like it's really cool to see you like accept or at least recognize influences in your work and be like, you know what? I should honor the part of myself that like loved, first of all, the Legend of Zelda soundtrack slaps. And
yeah, it does.
You should honor like things like that from your childhood and be like, this is part of what made me fall in love with music. This is what I mean, that's a great example of like adventuring and role play and all things that tabletop is about. But towards the topic of what we're talking about today, actual plays as art. What do you talk about for an artist? What do you think? What do you talk about for a painter? You talk about where they were at in life, what they were experiencing at the time, what the world was like at that time. There's a lot of things that I could talk about, just the general composition of Wish Hunter, and it itself as a project was forged in fire.
Totally.
Like many podcasts and passion products are, all of us put in way more time than insanely made sense.
It's true.
we did it because it was art. We did it because, especially during a time in our life where I think all needed art. Like Sav brings up a term every once in a while, collective effervescence, which is just the idea of being overwhelmed by that feeling of all the things that go into something, all of the ways that something connects, all of the many connections and the mass broadness of humanity that went into it, whether it was like a small group or a big group. Like you just feel the collective effervescence of it. And I think especially with our latest episodes, can feel that at these big moments of, I mean, I was there at the table, so I have the benefit of that, but hopefully our listeners too can feel the growth in the music matched with these cinematic moments that, again, you grew into the style that just like slaps. It just bangs, dude.
Oh, and you touched on a really great, okay. So that was one of my questions that I definitely felt like really personally was the composition of the overall campaign now in hindsight, from A to B, the A to B in each episode, and also aligned with the growth as a creative and a sound designer. how I described it, I guess that more straight to the point, was trying to keep up with how good we got on the table.
Yeah.
You know?
That is like the amount of time that I thought to myself, God damn it, George, if you describe one more thing before the end of the episode, I'm gonna.
It was a blessing and a curse for us to start out shaping how we were going to do this podcast and how we were going to bring our homebrew D&D to life on these microphones. And at the same time, like starting to get really good at it really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and like the music, I felt like on my end really felt like at first it had to be ethereal tones because it was like contemplate. You could feel the exploratory contemplation in our brains, in our imagination as we were role playing. And
the whole rave arc, like when you guys get to the unclaimed lands, you're in the Snarn Valley. And we had no idea that flashbacks were going to be such a severe part of the campaign until around that time.
Yeah.
There were so many things about early on. They were just decided on the fly, and the music, like you were saying, kind of reflects that. It reflects the warbling nature that there's energy there, right? You can feel the want to become something.
Yeah.
That the music just grows right as we hit the rave arc.
Yeah.
Maybe you also wanted to do honor to Maya's character, but the rave music is some of the first music where I'm just like, I cannot deny that this is a style that you've grown into and that there's something here. It's like stuff I've heard you play before, but this shit slaps.
Yeah. It's such a, like, to the blessing and curse bit. It was like so cool to come in kind of uninformed of what it felt like to Mickey Mouse us with music, or Mickey Mousing being like following the actions with some sort of tone or music to align with the happenings of, even if it's in an imaginary space and not a cartoon. At first I had this big idea of either just jazz piano with some like rhythm that shaped what happened. And there's some sitcoms out there that do this from scene to scene, but it grew into something that I think really had to keep up with the creativity we're bringing to the table, the coordination we are bringing to our character growth, and the world's descriptions that we were keeping up with, and the story growing. And to me, what that really felt like with the pace over what we were setting was like, oh man, I've chipped at a video game or two.
Yeah.
And I've heard the same soundtrack over and over. And for some reason, I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
What did they
possible.
do? Yeah, it's possible. So I slowly got more confidence instead of just adding music to big moments or moments that I felt were emphatic to the story or highlighting to a character or supporting to your exposition.
Yeah.
I started to feel this, like, what if I just, now that I feel the tone, and I do really feel like it was waiting to grasp the mood of Wish Hunter, the tone of the story, not necessarily the direction, but like, what does this world sound like? Yeah,
totally. I think we didn't realize how much of a horror campaign it was going to be.
Yeah. It's all minor key, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like the Wish Drinker, that entire arc. I think I've said it on several after shows, but if we were wanting to run a shorter campaign, that would be the end of the campaign.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rest would be left for mystery or campaign 2.
Man, you did say that. Yeah. That Everwood could have possibly, that first combat could have been the end of the Wish Hunter campaign.
I mean, if I remember correctly, that's like the first episode where strings are coming in and like you're really expanding to out of just like your comfortable instruments. You're going into things that you're really stretching. I mean, like you did from episode 0, but you're learning to stretch these muscles of like, well, maybe this instrument, maybe this, like always expanding, always growing. And same way for me, the Wish Drinker fight is the first time, I think I said earlier, first time I'm brave enough to be like, there could be a slash. There could be a slash with the sword, because I think my growth, like you were saying, you had.
I love that nuanced thought. So cool. Just keep going.
Similar to how you said you were kind of like exploratory in nature with the music. I was exploratory with sound effects, right? Like I've always been a mouth sound effect guy. When I was a kid, I used to play, when I was a kid, last week, today, I'll play with some action figures, make a sound effect or two. I mean, it's how my brain like kind of marks action.
Dude, you used to do it. I get to be your older brother.
Oh yeah, you know more than I do about it. You probably.
Before you were even like, totally sentient, I would say, we would be on walks and you would add sound effects to every motion.
Whoa.
There are some things that like I knew right away. And also why, like I'm now a beatboxer.
Yes, a good one.
For people that know, I'm pretty decent. And it came from, honestly, my little brother being so inspired by these freaking sound effects that I would sometimes make, that he would just go on and make like just develop categories and genres of these sound effects. Like it wasn't just a machine gun sound. He would make 3 or 4 different types of machine gun sounds.
Thank you.
And you were like fucking 4 years old.
Thank you.
It was very cool. I think like in the reflection of the growth in Wish Hunter, to probably hear like, oh, he's just aligning stuff that's going on in his brain. That was actually a question I had, is like, how much of the, I in the sound design, for somebody who probably hears a lot of like more sound effects, in picking which ones that just seem like the right compositional moment, or, that's, I guess, where the question is like, what makes you feel like this sound effect goes here?
That is such a good question. And I think it ties in exactly with that exploratory nature of my side of things, which was mouth sounds. It was like, and I think we joked around about the table of it being mouth sounds and mayhem kind of being our early campaign vibe, because the sound effects, apart from those sound effects that feel better to just describe, like it's way better to describe a waterfall than it is to gurgle.
Yeah,
there's something romantic about the word waterfall, right? Like,
just emulate.
But like, no, like, I mean, you hear, and you like, that's not the one to do. But in terms of sound design, that is one of the most impactful sounds that you can have in is, right? Like rave, one of my favorite transitions is from the music transitions at the same time as you hear the waterfall appear. And at the same time, you're hearing this more magical and mystical sound come in, but that's slightly besides the point. Like I was saying, it's the mouth sounds that really made me decide where to put sound effects first, like, because that's where I'm inspired. Like papaya. Oh God, I love papaya.
I love when you get so engaged with an NPC that you interject or you interrupt. I know Rob's feeling a freaking NPC when he has the bravery to just straight up interrupt RP, and it's good too. It's fun. You're like to join in.
Yeah, I do love to jump in, and I think it stems from character descriptions, or rather characters describing. I think in that moment
something happened.
You described like papaya. I remember at one point like looming over Volano, and I think I cut you off.
Oh yeah.
There's several moments where you just describe papaya as being intimidatory, and I'm just like, Papaya's not waiting for Parable to finish. That's one perfect example of just like Papaya's voice naturally felt great. And as a sound designer, I didn't realize it feels awesome to enhance things that want to be enhanced.
Totally.
Like,
could you expand on that for people that might? Yeah,
totally. You can make lots of sounds sound like something else and make it sound kind of close to what you want. Brick is a great example. Maya is so good about taking the breath out of those sound effects and making them solely vibration. Meaning that I can use something called a flange, or there's a number of different things that I could do that would just play with the frequency of the sound to make it dance and move and wobble. And you need good input to get good output. And like wanting to enhance things like papaya is a natural one where it's like, that's the synergy of the mouth sound, the mayhem, and what we come to find in like the skill of combining music with the moment. I think papaya is just a very direct example of technically a returning sound effect that makes you want to hear it more or hear it differently. Right. Same as brick.
It's weird. It's really intrusive sound, but it's also like something that I get excited to hear.
Yeah.
On the pod, or even when you do it at the table, it's like hard to be soft voiced when you're rolling your, and also to your point, like hard to do it without air, totally into the microphone. That is a great question though, that I have, but I want you to finish on the papaya bit. Yeah.
Just mainly the fact that my favorite thing now these days is finding ways to theme moments in the same way that you have themed the characters with different sounds. And that's one of my questions for you. But it was just so fun to find early on examples of places where I felt inspired by, like I said, mouth sounds.
Yeah.
That's where I want to put the sound effect, because I want a slash there, or I want to feel the pull of this. And now I know the words to search for, right?
Yeah.
Swell, stinger, reversed. Like there's all these things that I know that there are sounds that exist that people have had these same kind of audio hallucinations that I have.
Yep.
And somebody has put them out there, and there's 1,001 great royalty free places, but it's also super fun to make your own with your own mouth sounds. And I just learned to fall in love with both of those until it was all I wanted to do.
That is so cool. I think that is a great composition idea of like basically do everything you can with your mouth on the microphone. and anywhere you can't, add a sound effect.
I was actually thinking about when we have guests on the show, I want to encourage people to make their own mouth sound effects because I don't think many shows would be super supportive of that. And I love doing that.
Add a little reverb on that. Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah. And if you're bad at it, then I'll cut it and put a sound effect that sounds like what you intended.
Totally.
Like it helps me to understand what your mental image is of this moment. Like,
oh, good point.
You guys are all really, really good about that. And sometimes you guys are just all so good enough with description that it makes it easy to be like, yeah, this is exactly what they want sound. Like when you describe something sharp, it's got to be a high ringing sound that comes afterwards that reminds you of the sharpness of the blade.
Oh, dude,
right? Like,
that's the stuff that I feel like you have a natural talent for, or a passionate skill towards, because I don't think in the same way that some people can identify relative key or say, hey, this sounds like a G note here. I think being able to identify what adds frailness or sharpness or the sense of dread or is definitely a skill that you've honed.
Thank you. I was actually thinking about this. This is a tangent, but we went to a John Marco show, and he's a fantastic comedian. If you've ever seen him,
amazing.
John Marco Strezi. If you haven't heard of him, he's a great comedian. But there was a moment in a show where someone dropped like a clatter of a sound, and it kind of sounded to me like somebody being like, "Ha!" Like it sounded like a really harsh laugh, but it was obviously like the clatter of silverware or something. Yep. And he responded to it and said, "Yep."
Yeah.
And he took
a sound in the room and responded to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's got this little bit of them that is able to insert sound. Like I'm doing half the work. Your brain is doing the rest of it. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that I don't necessarily have to capture every single little action, but can put the feeling of that sound over, even if I can't capture it exactly. That's the beautiful thing about actual play, is that I can put chains moving this way and chains moving that way, and you can feel the shifting of Zin riding a horse as I add that gallop, and the flames rise up and they're winding through those chains. My only fear is, same to you, is being obtrusive and being like, oh, I put those chains in for too long. They rattled for too long to the point where it's like, oh, I'm out of the listener's mind.
Totally. I wanted to add tips, honestly, and tasks that I've run into and moving from the background and deciding where the music goes. I think really where I've learned is depth. Depth being volume fading. And fading in and out with your tracks, even if it's not to, unhearable decibels. Early on, before I was confident in creating themes and aligning compositionally the drums versus the bass versus the lead strings versus the low strings to shape these drops ins and outs, I would straight cut the track or add a fader or like just literally hold down a choral key and change two fingers as I'm going and changing the volume on my piano up and down. The early episodes are, I can't reuse any of the stuff because I would increase the volume when somebody would get important and then I'd turn it down. But yeah, those like early on, like tips I would have for myself were like, keep it simple, and there a lot goes with one harmony all the way through and adjusting dissonance to that one harmony. Like if you've ever been to like a sound bowl or like therapy or a sound bowl healing class, it's very similar. We're just adding a little dissonance to a chord can do a lot of a home and away effect.
Totally. Oh, that's something I would really love to talk about. And I haven't asked many questions, but one of my biggest ones is that I know that you have a lot of love for music theory and of course classical music theory, but also like your own relationship with music personally. And I feel like I've grown to sense that in terms of how you talk about resolution and how that there is like a home in music and you can find yourself wanting that next thing.
Oh no, he's lost the magic too.
I've seen behind the screen. I am the wizard now. I am the wizard now.
And this is just an old cranky man.
Sometimes I even play piano.
But he's good at it too.
Thank you. But maybe I'll put some stuff on the show one day. But I now know that there's places like in the finale, for example, when Parable, spoilers for the finale if you haven't listened to it.
True.
Parable makes a strike that rings, you describe, and it rings once, and then I re-describe it, it rings twice, and then you re-describe it a third time, and it rings a third time differently. Each time reverbed, but then there's the one last moment where it needs to all come together.
Yep.
And I re-describe it one last time, and I add in like chunks of stone falling off, and it's just that is the composition aspect that I really, really now fully relate to you on.
Dude.
About how some things need to be there and need to be heard, because it's like if you had just done those three, then it's just three sounds that kind of reflect that moment instead of a composed imagination moment that feels like, no, listener, this is what I'm thinking of. Are you thinking of the same thing?
Dude, it's wild because like I don't want to bring up that Rob and I played soccer together a lot when we were kids, but that felt like a mental pass of good pass. Like threes are a big thing, right?
Totally.
In storytelling, and then you got a duality, and then you got this trinity, and you like however you shape that, I can tell a whole story even just playing with marbles. And I really believe that math has been a big part of my life, but mainly because of the pattern recognition that comes with it and a craving that comes from things having intervals and spaces between. So if like a three goes a certain way, it's definitely it creates a build. You want resolution. I think John Mayer even talks about in Body is a Wonderland. He doesn't sing it a fourth time until the last round of the chorus.
Oh yeah, until you're like your brain's begging for
resolution, and then you get resolution, and it's a little pop song trick in music theory, but there's playing with home and away, completion of resolution to this whole composition in and out and how close you get to it. And honestly, what I've loved exploring in a little bit of the, I guess you would say jazz of the music, or more, outside of the music theory is playing with dissonance, playing with clashing chords, playing with unresolved endings to songs and weird rhythmic tempos and things like that.
Totally.
It really just not necessarily to make the listener feel a certain way, but to kind of play enough with that away from home and discomfort binary to leave it in a neurodivergent friendly space that feels stimulating, but I can listen to the words.
which is funny. Like the way you play is kind of, we jokingly sometimes call lore-fi instead of like
lo-fi.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't like that description.
It's pretty close.
Well, it is, but like I feel like lo-fi is kind of considered like low effort sometimes, which
very repetitive.
Yeah. And like your music is exactly the opposite of that. It's like whenever my brain's wanting something new, suddenly a new instrument is introduced, and like I think that level of intention is felt, at least on my side.
Cool.
I did have a question. How do you combine all that with character theming though? Maybe it's just the nature of the campaign, but the discordant nature of Odd and the plane that you guys find yourself in for the last couple episodes is you somehow played through every song that's ever been played in our campaign, but also made it representative of the moment, right? Like,
oh my gosh, that is such a cool and big question that comes from a beginning of this instrument sounds like the desert. The recorder representing the Middle East in some romantic or desert in some way, like because a snake or like the flute in some ways can really shape the ear and really pull from references that we might have, sociopolitically and things like that.
Culturally, media wise, like we have been again towards that earlier point of like accepting your influences and realizing like, oh, I do actually have a language that's been societally given to me about, maybe I don't know what a hug sounds like, but it's actually just the squeezing of rope, guys. Yeah. It's just rope tightening.
Yep.
It's rope or leather tightening.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I love those little like Easter eggs or ether eggs about sound effects of what they actually are when you hear it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to the point of like growing into, I think, knowing what instruments shaped what and in what way, it all ended up being like those intervals and patterns. So like, and that necessarily was the flute. I was doing like a solo with the flute over one of our tracks. And I noticed it was just the pattern that I was playing, and I could change the instrument that I was doing and maybe do it on the French horn, and I'd still get the same vibe.
Yeah.
So I could set down the stereotype and really still shape this desert theme with like an electric guitar or something like that.
Oh God, I love the electric guitar tracks. I think the strings and the electric guitar are two of my favorite instruments outside of the piano. Piano will always be my favorite instrument that you play. So that shit slaps, dude. Like I think we should get into playing some clips here soon because I just want to listen to some good stuff.
Yeah, we can. I mean, that's a good point to like. I mean, as a musician, I've always been kind of aware of like the floors and ceilings in a set list, like how big is a song versus like a slow. And it's a lot like tempo. It's how hard you're playing, as well, how many instruments are on and all that. But with the floor and ceiling initially just being a couple tracks and some ethereal tones and slowly growing into, okay, this instrument represents this, actually this pattern and this mode or this scale represents this, and really kind of shaping what eventually felt like a tavern rock version
totally
of our music, but
yeah, I'm reminded of A Knight's Tale, and like that that moment that it kicks into like,
right.
I mean, that it's that vibe, right? Like not the music exactly, but like the feeling that you're capturing. It again, you somehow put us in a fantasy setting while playing electric guitar, right? Like you make me feel Akuma, and maybe it's the fact that electric guitar reminds you of lightning, and Akuma is a snaky dragon,
fire, and
like I see conceptually how like your brain could leap to that, but that's for me, that's only in hindsight. If I'm scoring, if I'm in your position, I'm listening to a medieval fantasy campaign, I'm Googling fantasy instruments, and none of them are electric guitar. You know, like
I'm divergent enough, I guess, in that neurosets. Like I have a soundtrack going now. Like for us, like and it's just that's way I stay focused. I guess
he is the elevator.
Yeah, it just best compliment I've ever gotten.
Thank you.
The ultimate background music, the hold music in the elevator. But yeah, the floor and ceilings were really, I discovered there are some things that you can't avoid with it, or you could avoid, but would be very difficult to reinvent the wheel. If you add electric guitar to orchestra music, it's the biggest you're going to get. If you add a hip hop 808 beat to orchestral music and then some electric guitar or EDM wub, like that's the biggest.
Well, I would say that that's the biggest that you're going to get, barring unless you had 15 minutes to hear horns rise.
Right. Yeah. Or it gets really complicated to start orchestrating different things that sound really cheap on a synth. So unless you have 12 horns or time to overlay.
Just as like, I do often forget about, like, sometimes I'll think about a track and I forget that you're also composing under the pace of our storytelling, which can shift like this or that or that.
And
like,
week to week to week.
Like, and I'm glad that my sound effects can sometimes now serve as the place where a sudden shift needs to happen or something, because like, when we first started,
they're literally fucking gold.
Oh, thank you.
They're like, in addition to being like brain stimmy, they're like chapter markers that are so organic where like I don't have to put like this math to it. It's just there intuitively.
It's so funny because sometimes, a lot of times I get sound effects first to George, and sometimes he gets music to me first. I think it's been much more often my sound effects to you first. Yeah. But I think I've had 1 or 2 times where I've gotten to listen to music and then like add more sound effects or like really polish the episode. And I'm like, it's just so funny how we're both sitting here like, give me your stuff so I can make my stuff, because like your music is so driving. There's like often moments where I'm just like, oh, the sound effect doesn't need to go here, because towards that composition point, like episode 21, I think, is an example of where I got music and then had the time to return to it and add a little bit, make sure ambiance felt perfect. And God, so many fucking layers with a space battle.
Space stuff is hard.
Yeah, space stuff is hard, but it is just so good to have your music that's driving. And it's just like towards that composition point, I love being like, oh no, the strings are swelling here. Like that's where like, and just for sound visibility, like in mixing, if frequencies clash, then one wins out. That like you don't always are able to capture a pure mixture of sound. And I'm thinking of one example where I really wanted the flap of like Parable's cloak falling.
Yeah.
And just like having the opportunity to time it with ebbs and lulls and music is just, it's so fun. It's such a fun thing to do on my side of things.
I'm glad it's fun, because like I was always worried that, you know, in taking up that space, we might lose this really cool sound effect that could have gone there. Because I definitely feel like you had the ability to be more particular, like if we're talking about the skills we're bringing to this, you know, experience, and me making the music and you doing these sound effects that you hear as you're listening or doing storytelling at any time. I definitely felt like it was hard for me to not just do music throughout. And I ended up going that direction because it was easier for me to score the entire episode than pick where the fuck music goes. Yeah. Especially when you care about the story so much. And I'm the person I'm like, I'm reading a book and I'm like, oh dude, that was such a cool song. Oh wait, oh shit, I'm reading.
I think there's something so powerful about the fact that whenever there's not music on the show, listeners, you can know I made an intentional choice to cut something or otherwise diminish it so much in the mix that G's music cuts out, because my favorite thing about that is, especially if it's in the middle of the song, when it comes back, like you're maybe again, it's just me, but I can feel that like, you're not just picking up on the bar. Like, of course I'll try to pick a good point, like in the song that feels measure wise correct. to drop in and drop out. But like, I think you again can feel the collective effervescence of that goes into like, no, I'm going to listen to this whole thing. I'm going to make sure that like every moment has a musical counterpart. Yeah. And if it doesn't, then Rob took it out.
Hey, I'll do layers in and out of just like, normally like if there's strings, there's at least 4 tracks for the strings if it's not just a lead. And then there's bass and some other type of bass and then rhythm and, I could go on. But the idea of like letting the dice decide the drop. So just like with the music, it is hard sometimes to decide to the point where like where a sound effect goes.
Totally.
To when the drop happens with the beat. And a lot of times my favorite one is somebody describing something cool, the music drops out. Mm-hmm. Somebody when we're going a little bit more and we got like 20 seconds going on and they're like, well, okay, the music's like fading out. And
what's happening?
And then Rob says, go ahead and give me that roll. And somebody says nat 20 and it's like, that is my favorite, but even more than like a sword strike that lands into a sick beat or like a bass drop or an electric guitar hit. My favorite thing is the dice roll.
That is a very good point that there are moments that like you emphasize with like not only song, but silence. Like there's so much filling the soundscape of our episodes these days that silence just hits so hard. And like, I know that it's such a big decision about like for you, like where you place your songs. And similarly, like you were saying, sometimes the slash doesn't go on the dice roll. Like it often for me, and I'm sure for you, depends on how clean our resolution is. Like sometimes like we'll roll something and it's like, oh, but what's the modifier? And like, what's that? And one of my favorite things that you've really become fantastic at doing is still learning to make those moments matter by increasing tension. And like one of my favorite tracks is, remind me if you have the title of this one top of mind. It's the episode 21 clip I want to play. And it's the strings that go, that
is, and try to guess the influence here. That is literally called Halo Chief.
Okay.
I had just watched the some people love, some people hate Halo Netflix series.
I think it's good. And
I grew up the game with Rob and we played a lot of Halo. That was honestly where we learned to deal with our disagreements. And it like, I really wanted to make something that was not in any way copyright or the same thing.
Totally.
But I wanted to make something that really referenced something that I loved and cared about and had the same energy of feeling like running digitally through the snow with your brother with a futuristic weapon.
I mean, I played that soundtrack forever and like, yeah, I can hear the influence, but I can't hear anything exact at all. And my favorite thing about it is just like the way that it rises from so low to so high that like there's room for moments of nat 20. Oh no, I have disadvantage. No, I'm gonna fortune's favor. Oh, nat 20. Like because it leaves space for 2 rounds of the strings to rise and then to reset and to rise. And then suddenly you break out of it. And like, there's the big moment. That is true. That's the true skill that I think I've really come to appreciate about the way that you play music and for our shows. Cause it's not just me reaching out to composer and being like, hey, I need a song that sounds like the Feywild.
Yeah.
Plus a little bit of, I need the Feywild jazz. My players are going to a Feywild jazz club. like you
beautiful.
And just like receiving a 10-minute clip and being like, well, you could loop this. And like, by the way, if you want me to make you a 15-minute version, I could do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Like that's the extent of my creative ability. If I didn't have a fantastically talented brother who's willing to listen to every fucking second of the show and think about it. Like, yeah. And not only that, I do want to play some clips. Maybe we'll have time for, I'll say 2 clips.
Yeah. We'll cut most of this.
We'll cut most of it. And not only that, like the fact that you've come to use this as like a creative process, like, cause at the end of our campaign, you now have an album, right? Like, I mean, how many songs total did we?
Really, no, we wrote these songs. I really feel that. I think the total would be, if I were including things that were like sometimes maybe a 30-second to 3-minute track, hundreds.
Oh,
if I'm saying what some of the themes molded into by say like episode 15, and I started to get more confident adding elements that were more connected to moments, characters, nuance of energy. So combat music or, transitions types of energies towards like what magic feels like. I would say a total of say like 40 some larger like 30-minute song, or they're like 15-minute songs.
So cool, dude. Like just the creative process that you fell into is just awesome to watch. And I'm excited to streamline it a little bit more so we can both get a little bit more sanity.
Hey, I guess tips to anybody out there trying to make an album: just have your favorite person ask you to do a D&D campaign, and then you have to make the music for it by the end when it's over. But yeah, I think it was really cool to find a process and rediscover, mixing, mastering, sound design on my end, and working with another very, at least at the beginning, very passionate and now very curated and practiced sound designer.
Thank you.
To go back and forth and try to figure out what the hell goes here. And in that process, I mean, we really, with Wish Hunter, like figured out what it would be like to, what felt like run a larger thing that DiceSized could be.
Totally.
Because it's going to slow down in the sense of like being better at a lot of the elements that we do. But I think where the creative mind met the technical mind was in the speed at which we had to create these and figure out what the depth I could go without not having enough time. Really turned into, I think, a style that was representative of not just like keeping your attention and trying to be just background music and add flavor, but also be something listenable and reusable. There was something I discovered in that process that I think is hard to quantify. And that is Rob has got a recap every single time. I first felt this in the recap. And I dragged the first time I'd done this up until like episode 8, everything was new music.
Yeah.
I didn't reuse anything. It was very like to the moment. I couldn't anyway. And then when I started to make things a little bit more reusable, meaning like a little bit more generic and not so tightly tuned to what's going on, that I could fit another moment, like playing to the energy. When I started to reuse those things, I'm like, wow, that really lined up in a weird way. And then I started doing
it's almost like I can trust my previous past self that isn't necessarily exactly looking at this moment.
Not just that, but like the things like per turn. And it was before like you really tried to focus on timing with edits. Like it was it was just organic. And I would drag it once I started using layers, at least for my prior music, like a drum track or a bass, and then adding things over, or like including a whole prior track with some new changes for like theme. It was so wild sometimes to insert something intuitively. I'm like, oh, this is a callback to Zin's energy from this one thing. And with the start of Rob introducing it, each turn and all the drops and ins and outs, maybe having to fix 2 things.
Totally.
So there was one time on a 25-minute track that was very, very nuanced. I can't even remember which one it is at this time. It was like Wishland. I had named it, but it's a sad track that melds into pretty intense.
Totally.
So it's very hard to find things without really timing it to be perfect. And per turn, and I was like waiting there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to fix the ending. There's no way that this lined up for 25 minutes. And Rob says, and we return to, and it goes, Doom.
Yeah, man, I love that stuff. For our listeners, I also actually have a home game, which is called The Broken Realms of Exodus.
Oh, dude, we get to talk about Broy.
Broy. It's me, my brother, my friends.
Your good friend.
my good friend and his brother-in-law. So it's a table of brothers. And my sibling-in-law was also part of our table for quite a while. And the reason I bring that up is because sometimes I use Lore Score and I just put it over our session recordings because like I want to listen to an old, like, oh, I got to know what's coming up for this next home game.
I barely noticed.
And yeah, it's just I really recommend to folks out there, if you want music on your own table recordings, toss a Lore Score track over the whole thing. It's not hard. Like that's why I release them in full. I have personally put them over my own home game recordings and been like, is this curated? Like how did you know? And I think it's like you were talking about before, something about home and intervals and just the space
like
between
innate timing. Like, totally. I mean, we talked about innate timing and how long sessions should feel when we first started playing D&D, like, oh man, I mean, it really feels like beginning there, it took like 1.5 to 3 hours to warm up. And we wanted like this other 3 to 4 hours. And we thought that that's how it was going to stay. And then we got better at it, as like, everybody does. And we were like, oh, I feel like warmed up after an hour, maybe half hour.
I want to sprint for 2 hours now and I want to collapse after.
Yeah, we want to jump in and we want to feel that experience as players. Like the long will go is like 4 hours because we're in it the whole time.
Yep.
And I really feel like if you want to use the lore score music, it's very cool to use it during the campaign. That's great. But one thing that I've noticed, if you just want to highlight something cool your players did,
totally,
and you've got a recording of it, slap that shit on in there, play it at the beginning of your session to get them hyped.
Yeah.
You know, use one of the bigger tracks, or like there's some the sappy tracks for low moments. There's all different types of stuff for different vibes. It is built in a world of fantasy meets modern personality.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there is something to, I mean,
with some space.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is something to your music that's kind of like defies genre, and the fact that we are playing high fantasy, and it's not necessarily high fantasy music.
Yeah.
But it, in my opinion, fits really well. And I think there's a lot of D&D tables out there that probably similarly like have high fantasy settings that kind of touch different. I mean, that's D&D. Yep. Like when you go to the astral plane, it's not exactly high fantasy anymore. It's astral high fantasy.
Oh, that's what I love about it. The anime does this a little bit. I love, you showed me some cool anime where they make one step into the forest and you're expecting Studio Ghibli like fairy music, energy, piano stuff, and all of a sudden EDM comes on.
Yeah,
shit's about to go down.
God, I love the My Hero soundtrack. My Hero Academia. If you haven't listened to it, if you haven't watched that show or aren't an anime person, just listen to the My Hero Academia soundtrack. I'm going to butcher the name, but it's Yuki Hayashi, who's the music artist. And it's just like these fantastic moments of orchestral music mixed with drums. And like, like you were saying, kind of similar to the EDM drops, like the drums just come in at these moments where your brain wants them, but the scene is not asking for them. Right. Sometimes they're overly intrusive, but they become like almost the focal point of the scene as you're watching what's going on. And I love how there are similar moments in our show where like, the music almost takes a foreground point where it's like one of my favorite things about orchestral kind of music is that it's so good at making you feel what is being translated about what you're watching or listening to. And like so many times I am literally transported by the music at the same time that the description of a scene is begging me to be transported, which my voice is good, but I don't know if it could do that alone to be like, right. Like to be like, you're in an oasis. Sand.
I mean, that's a hard part.
You're in an oasis. We're quiet here. You can't talk that loud.
I love that, like, because it does lead into like, you know, how to pick outside of picking an instrument and rhythm and things, like in the dexterity of your play, like how do you create this like entering, exiting, tension and rise? And there's so many elements to it, but a good idea to bring to it is, if this were playing in your, I was going to say Walkman or your iPod.
Yeah, oh God, don't even fucking start about mixing for different things.
No,
like, oh God.
I mean, just the idea, if you had your headphones in and you're walking in this environment, would it feel like the movie would make sense? You know?
Oh, totally. Yes.
You know, just gotta be like, is this the theme song for me right now?
Yeah, you triggered me a little bit because sometimes I listen to things in the car versus headphones and I'm just like, this is different, which of course it is.
But, oh my God, speaker to speaker. That's a whole other conversation. Holy shit.
That is one of my favorite things to do, is literally listening to sessions unscored and sometimes fully unedited and like listening to the rough cut, going for a walk and being like, what do I like? Can I actually be swept away? And that actually does bring me up to what I think is nearing the end of our show. Let's play maybe 2 or 3 clips. Like maybe one, we can roll for it.
Great idea.
I have a couple of clips chosen out, and I'm sure you have a couple of moments that we could maybe like visit and chat about. And mine, a couple of them are for that very specific visual reason that we're talking about. So hopefully I roll higher.
I wanted to do like a hip and a crit of like, but I honestly don't have the memory to say. I'm sure there's moments where I'm like, oh, that could be better. You know, like, but, you know, with my pip. But
my only pip in terms of the music, we didn't have the time.
No, it was like forge ahead with what works.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we made a lot of choices that felt best. I'm not going to return to old work and be like, this needs to be different. But like, I'm so excited to have the time and like, again, the language and communication skills to be like, what could this be? Let's consider this. Maybe not. Let's try it. But now let's do this.
To that point, dude, one thing that I'm so excited for that you mentioned earlier is an extra like editing time period because of my being more aligned with our process and my music not getting to you a day before we post or on the posting day. The ability to add silence, because I'd love, like in my work, I do love just to add music everywhere and leave it up to the person who's using said music, to anybody else who wants to hire me out there. I like to give you a lot so that you can pick and choose where it goes. And if you're lacking that intuition, we can definitely talk about what we do. But Rob, you definitely have the intuition. And I didn't give you time to implement those anti-drop and silence moments where we just talked. And honestly, if I went back and remastered the music for the podcast, most of it would be clipping music.
Well, one thing I think is actually really special about the all music style of the show is that it's kind of always telling you to keep listening.
Totally.
Which I think that's what I want most out of podcasts, and why so many shows cut dead space, and why so many shows care so much about pacing. I think the music in moments of silence allows for more space.
Totally.
Right. When I without ambiance or anything else that's saying this scene is continuing, your phone didn't just pause.
Right.
Silence is only so powerful as the things around it. And I do truly think that the style you chose of going more music than not is just insane to me, but a really, really ad-star style of show.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever been pissed off by the audio book that you're listening to suddenly playing music, I never wanted to be that. I really hope that it brought a level of easy listening that enhanced our story for everybody out there. And if you feel differently, I love hearing criticism, comments, anything that you got. And if you have praise, I'll also hear that too.
Yep. And if you want to hire him, you can also hire me. My sound design services are for the right price at your services.
Hey, frick, hire both of us.
Shit, I mean, well, I think if you're ever booking us, you can just ask for RnG. But that's outside the point. Let's play some clips and chit chat about it. And I think to figure out who gets to pick first, let's roll off, brother.
Okay.
That's a 2.
Man, low rolls, but I got a 6.
Nice. Okay. What is your choice? I think we got time for 2 or 3 clips. So we've talked about a lot of moments. Are there any moments that we chatted about, or
let's do, for the sake of it, let's do the most recent.
Okay, cool.
I mean, unless you want to save that for last at all.
No, that sounds great to me. What moments from our finale are you thinking about?
Dude, let's go to the recap.
Okay, hell yeah. So this is the recap from our most recent episode, the finale, most recent recorded episode. I'm not sure where this is posting.
Cool. You gotta admit.
Yeah, that drop is just great.
Yeah, so I had just finished watching Stranger Things. And I really, to Rob's point of letting influences start to affect me. You can hear that.
Yeah.
And it gives you that kind of ambience that Stranger Things had in there. And shout out to their finale and stuff. This is right around the same time as our release. And the beat is something that I whenever I'm deciding the beat, I gotta pick something that doesn't remind people of other things.
Yeah.
It's gotta either be a walk rhythm or a driving rhythm. And this one, I feel like it just nailed this energy.
I love that.
Gets the drop out there. And I really love in this energy of this song. It's one of the first ones where I started to access some of the Ableton sounds.
Yeah, I'm gonna boost it because I want to hear the textures a little bit. Yeah, there's so much going on in the back there.
Yep. Yeah, there's about 14 layers going.
Yeah. Okay, so listeners, be aware. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit louder so that you can feel kind of the layers and the depth of the music, which we don't always get to portray on the show. Love that. Your character theming something that you can obviously I'm talking about Soraya or whatever.
The drop out, then the next lighter rhythm comes in.
I can feel what I'm saying, the energy of what I'm saying as you're right. Yeah.
Bass is rising in the back. You start to hear the lead analog. And sometimes I'll have a lead-in drum like that. That normally means it wasn't a moment. It was leading to something.
Cool.
Like that. And that was only drums for half a bar.
Yeah, you're just so good about theming those moments where action needs to be kind of felt.
Yeah, this is one of my proudest, I think, mainly because it was honest to the influences that I was absorbing at the time. It was true to the recap song and theme the entire time. So this is the same song that you hear on episode 1, just redone with a bunch of different instruments.
So cool. So cool. I love this drum beat.
It's supposed to tickle in a way that makes you listen to it, but then fall out of it and let it just kind of echo.
Yeah, it really reminds me of Odd, and like the staircase and like these shifting stairs and doorways, and like again towards the not necessarily high fantasy instrumentals being used here. Like this is space, and you can like combine with the reverb that I put into episodes for voice.
Yeah, reverb was a huge element.
Oh, I guess. Do you ever find the drones or the textures that I add to be anti-helpful?
No, because they're guiding. It just like if you have a bunch of low end and my low end is competing, I'll have that moment highlight you with a lot of high end.
Cool.
And I'll have like the flute go over and stuff, or the drums just support you. I have noticed it definitely depends on what effects that I do, but I love this one mainly because it ends up being, to me, not only foreshadowing of the future fight with Grave, because this comes in right before we finish off Grave.
Totally.
I think it's a track before. And it also is like tied to the very beginning of the campaign. It's like the first song in our animatic and everything. It just, it's also a remnant what started our energy.
I can hear it now. I can hear it.
Only knew the lucky few that made it till the end. You might hear a story of bloodshed and glory and a wish from the friend. Yeah.
Dude.
It's so like technically this was all built off an acoustic guitar song that I wrote for a campaign as a bard, and it really inspired what I felt like was a party's energy of like leaving a space behind to find a story. And Rob so graciously included it.
I love the Lucky Few. One of the things I've always loved about the Lucky Few is that the lyrics speak of an adventure that
I'd play that.
I mean, right? But it's in such a way that like it could fit many stories. And then when you kind of fine tuned it for Wish Hunter, like I first of all felt honored because I was like, dude, these are lyrics that you're kind of always fucking and finding. Like I know that the structure that you've built is a thing that is like set in stone, but the way that you have been so ready to modify it into whatever it needed to be for Wish, just so cool. Do you want to take a listen to Lucky Few?
I would totally listen to Lucky Few if we have, cool. If you want to clip some of any of this, it's fine. But I really love that this whole campaign to me felt like sometimes one song expanded, collapsed, redone with a few other elements in there, like to the question of how many songs I've made on this. Technically, if I wanted to be like music theoretically correct, maybe 4.
Yeah. Insane. Okay. Well, let's take a listen to Lucky Few and then I'll toss a clip in and then maybe we'll end our time and maybe we can do a little bit of extra time for the Patreon because I'm having a good time. I don't know about you.
Me too.
Cool. And here is a Lucky Few by one madly musical mind. That is my brother, George.
Outro leading into the intro.
So fun, dude.
The stars above tell us a story of old. The heavens beat and billow, the fires below. The 7 completed, the 8th turned to unfold. As I remember, that's how the story goes.
It's so Wish Hunter.
Yeah, and like it.
They told me of riches and dead men in ditches beyond the rising road. It might be the trick is we ran from those witches before they took all our souls.
I love the back reverb, but I added a touch of it at the end of the episode.
We only knew the lucky few that made it till the end.
That's Maya in there.
You might hear a story of bloodshed and glory and a wish from the dead. We wandered the lands with fate in our hands, where wizards told us to roam. Just roam. Echoes of treasure, a soul it would measure of any who dare behold. We found what we'd find, running from time, our hope held till stars awoke. They never did say what we lose on the way, a cruel and fateful joke. If we only knew the lucky few that made it till the end, you might hear a story of blood without glory and a wish for a friend. If we only knew the lucky few that fell along the bend, they might just miss that long dead wish they saved for the end.
Gosh, one of my absolute favorite songs I've ever heard you play, man. And for it to be at the end of this campaign with these lyrics that feel so perfect to Wish Hunter.
Doesn't it feel perfect to like, if I'm going to be proud about it, not insecure about all the, the vocal inflections I want to change and all that.
I'm sure you'll rework it 1,000 times.
So I love that I felt like I captured what it felt like to finish a D&D campaign. To finish a D&D campaign.
Not only that, I think one of my favorite details is that you say 8th turn, which our campaign ends on the 9th turn.
Yep.
The 8th turn is arguably the transition point of the 3 wizards.
Oh, so it's like he's a prophet before it all happened.
Exactly, and it's just
we're talking about. See, you're informing me about the.
But you're talking about at the same time. You're talking about the tragedy of the 3 wizards during the 8th turn and what that 8th turn accomplishes for the 9th turn.
Totally,
which is like if you only knew that the lucky few that come next time.
Yeah.
But you can't know the lucky few because they're not us. They're not the wizards 3. They're not Wish, Time, and Luck. They're Parable, Zin, and Cassie.
Yeah, I guess if you get into the canon of it, I sing the chorus 3 times. 4th time being a resonant, hey, we're done. But it's like, it's kind of like who I would know then would be Fortune, Fate, and Favor, Luck, Time, and Wish, Parable, Zin, and Cass.
Yeah.
And then
Prayer, Promise, and Potential otherwise. But
Prayer, Promise, and Potential. And the last one being a sad resonance of what could be.
Yeah, just, there's a word I learned recently, which is dramaturg or dramaturge. I believe it's dramaturg, perhaps both, but dramaturgy or dramaturgy, don't quote me on it. But I do know what it is. It's a role that you'll often find in theater or sometimes movies, but anything that requires performance and where performance has happened in a certain way for many years, like dramaturgs are typically brought on to projects to like help characters find growth and arcs that make sense. They do a lot of what a DM does, which is like, hey, players, what do you see the seed of this theme and where do you find your character taking on tropes and like what tropes do you want to avoid? What tropes do you want to live through? And then helping that story come to fruition through that lens. A lot of times they're brought on to projects that have like long histories that you want to both honor and also do something new and maybe reference something. It's such a varied role, but one thing that makes it very important is that it allows for consistency.
Totally.
And growth. And one thing that I've loved about this is just working closely on a project like this with you. And like Lucky Few is just a perfect example of how I've seen your art grow.
Oh, thanks, man.
In terms of the dramaturg aspect of it, like, I think we both do that. All 4 of us, my beautiful wife and my beautiful not wife and my brother and I all just, I think, do a great job of dramaturging for one another and being like, but remember to truly honor what you wanted out of this way back when it would be like this. And I think talking to old George from 2 years ago whenever the song, 3 years, when did we, a while ago.
Yeah.
Whenever you first concepted of this bardic song for it to become what it is in this moment is just very, very, very cool to me, to the dramaturgist in me.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote it in an afternoon with
dramaturg.
I think I wrote it in an afternoon with Maya's help. And that word is so cool because I feel like it encapsulates the energy at the table of the zeitgeist of what we're doing. The zeitgeist of what we're doing. I want to listen to some sound effects. I know Lucky Few is very synonymous or analogous with Wish Hunter, but I do think the growth of seeing sound effects come in the same way I felt like I was in the background with the music.
Yeah.
I felt like waiting for big moments to use sound effects. and then it slowly becoming part of the style of Wish Hunter.
Mm.
In the same way the music grew, I felt like I was almost, once the sound effects started, it did feel, without hyping you at all, without trying, that I had to keep up.
Oh, well, thank you. I felt like there was a lot of moments that I felt like the music was lifting too much, right? Like that I wanted it to be an addition.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of times where I wouldn't add sound effects. Like I almost didn't add a waterfall in Rave Part 1 because I was like, it'll drown out the twinkling
That's
music.
So you're like worried it's going to make this huge impact. Then you do it. And you're like,
oh, that's what this is. That, like, I want to hear water and piano together. And same here. Like early on, I remember, oh, should I put this very harsh sound? Like, is it going to be the right note? Like, I mean, and like these days we do actually put that level of intention into it, but it's not out of the fear. It's out of like wanting to mix so well. Like one thing I do very intentionally is I never put in a sound effect raw. I never just like plop it in there.
Right.
Always, not only do I fade it in and out, but I normally put in a couple of duplicates for it to reverb and fade really well into the music.
Totally.
Because I never want the tone of however that sound effect was recorded or synthesized to suddenly be so different that it's like, I'm in a different place outside of the vibe of the show. And that happens if you just plop it in there.
Yeah. Different room tone, like the compression values are different, meaning like it just sounds bigger or smaller or just not in the right place, I guess. But yeah, that is so cool to hear the general growth in the SFX, like inspiring the music and the music inspiring the SFX to the point where like we're doing this cinematic video game energy with like what felt like anime level energy.
Yeah. Thank you.
But at the same time, holding this mundaneness of like growing from where we came from. It's not like we just suddenly like started doing space music.
Yeah.
Or we just started saying, okay, now we're this big. There was an organic continuum where it was like, okay, this happens next.
I'm very excited to get back to stories that aren't as cinematically massive as we have come to love. Like I now as a creative have to consider my bandwidth as what I like. This was an endeavor that I can only take on once every once in a while. Like our next major campaign, we will take on with like greater skill, but with the same amount of wanting to improve and add on. And I know that I need to prevent burnout by like going to things that are like I hope to do something that's like you can get along with just the sound of wind rolling and a little bit of wah wah wah.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have the space of 5 minutes because like the sound of cacti in the distance is good or whatever. I don't know what we'll do, but
yeah, and I do think that'll help to force if is it spoilers talk about any kind of Westerns?
It has not been announced in any way. I have been kicking around some ideas of what we'll be doing next, and I am currently considering an Outlaws type adventure. So that's yeehaw. We shall see. But you know me, I got to make it complicated, so it's not going to be just a straight Western.
I'm just excited to be trapped in a genre and not be able to expand out of it so much, because Wish Hunter did have a lot of room for touching different genres of music, or styles or energies of songs. And I think it'll be very cool to be kind of like more niche with it. And I think it will create more dynamics. It will create more theme, and it will also simplify the whole fucking process.
Yeah, exactly. Like sticking within one very clear.
Here's a stereotype.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear what I think your favorite, whether it's the end result or the work that went into it, a sound effect that really impacted you.
I've got 3, I think that spring to mind immediately, 2 from the finale and 1 from episode 21. And I think because I love the episode 21 one so much, I'm going to hold off on that one till the end. And for now, I'm going to play 2 sound effects that they're sound effects only. And you tell me.
Oh, we have to figure out
You try to figure out the scene that this is from in the finale.
All right.
And I'll tell you if you're right or not. And then we'll play the full clip after.
Cool.
This is, again, an SFX only clip from the finale.
Dude.
That's it. That's the full thing.
Freaking wild. All right.
Any guesses?
I'm torn between a Crave moment when he is transitioning in one of his not necessarily phases, but when he like yells at us.
Oh, okay.
And the other one is an attack from Parable.
You got it with the second one. An attack from parable. You're also kind of right that it's actually a mixture of both, because it is not only an attack from parable on one side, but you hear that sharp cutoff in the middle.
Yeah. What is that?
That is Crave whipping up a blade of disaster. It's the moment where you guys stand off. And it's one of my most visually strong moments that I have, because you can feel on either side, or at least in my mind, like the dual natures of the bright white combined with the dark black and the energy of the sounds.
Totally.
I make clash in the middle because it's like interrupting the beauty of the blade of the last breath. And so
it sounds like an energy storm with somewhere in the middle, this extreme coordination happening, like a microchip, you know, when the little ding comes up, I think you even said something.
Oh, that's one of my favorite themes that I've come to love for Parable. Like I used to be like you were saying, afraid of being a little bit repetitive or not wanting to be.
Every episode has something new.
yeah. But like sometimes like the sound of is it's what it sounds like to turn into a genie.
Yep.
Like now, because I chose to use that for the very first moment, it's never felt right to change it. Like sometimes I'll make it a little bit windier or but it's always starts with that sound. Yep. So here's the full clip.
He's just gonna look at his friends doing so much damage, and he's gonna fly straight towards him, and he's going to summon his blade of the last breath.
As you fly towards him, you see him gathering up the energy of a blade of disaster to cast next. So this is two Jin swordsmen flying at each other from across a barren wasteland with cosmic.
That's so freaking sick,
dude. Like, so glad that I have the music in that last little clip, because that's my favorite track. That's swelling. That
is my favorite too. That's why I saved it for the last one. I even though it wasn't new, I wanted the last one where we actually destroyed Crave to be.
And if you've been listening to us and enjoying it so far, then unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop you here, because the rest of it's going to be over on our Patreon. We originally planned RnG as a patron only and had such a fun time and talked for such a long time that this first hour we dropped on the main feed. But if you would like to hear us continue our conversation about actual plays as art, please head on over to DiceSized.com. So with that, thank you for joining us by the DiceSized Dice-Siders. Now go out there and be twice kinder. DiceSized.